All right. Well, we had some technical difficulties just now, but we're finally on here. Finally here. Thank you for joining us for episode 2 of our video podcast. This is Med. That's Seth. What's up, bro?
What's going on? Glad to be here.
I'm glad to have you back. We decided to take a week off and see if you could we're trying some new stuff. But anyway, yeah, pretty much. So far on the show, we're going to be having. We're going to be talking about what's going on with Jim Harbaugh, what's going on as far as what happened in the college football playoffs, and a whole lot of good stuff. Talking about the bubble teams and the NFL and everything. So we'll see what happens. And starting off with opening drive.
What fun.
So I'm gonna have to. It's on your phone. That's what's throwing me off. All right, so with the opening drive, basically reactions to the college football playoffs and some of the bowl games. We have check.
That better?
Check. Yeah, you got it.
Sorry about that.
You're good. As far as bowl games and everything, I only went through a couple of them. Cotton Bowl, Orange Bowl. Should we really cover the Orange Bowl? Wasn't really much of a game.
Oh man, that was rough to watch. I know Florida fans probably had a lot of fun, but for FSU, it really seemed like after that first quarter, they put up a little bit of a fight, and once they got down by a couple of touchdowns, it's like the team just gave up.
And, you were talking a little bit about it whenever the actual game was going on and everything, how it just looked like, how could you really want to sit on the sidelines and watch your boys get just railroaded like that?
Yeah.
I mean, I heard at least 23. Some people told me 27 people were not.
Yeah, I thought it was 24, but, no matter what it was all your best players. I mean, from the defensive line to the wide receivers to your best running back. Obviously, your backup quarterback transferred or hit the portal before the game. You're with a third-string freshman who's played part of one game. So, obviously Georgia didn't take it easy on them.
No,
I
not
don't
at
blame
all.
them. I mean, Kirby adjusted after the game. They got to look at doing something. I mean, you can't have this kind of situation every year, with the team that gets left out of the playoffs saying, we'll just call it a season.
Yeah, and there was a lot of hoopla that was going on with this. I mentioned something on Twitter about it, the fact that, it really felt like it was kind of like what happened with UCF a few years ago whenever they were talking about the fact that they had that perfect record, and then they go in, they're like, oh, yeah, and then they actually beat Auburn back in 2017. And then you see what happened when they went up against Georgia. They just got railroaded. It was basically like taking a hot tub time machine back 1 year and watching what happened last year against TCU, where they got beat by 64-7.
Except TCU had all their players.
Yeah. And what's crazy is not only that, but Georgia actually beat the previous record of the score of victory that they set last year.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the previous record you do not want to be a part of.
No, I mean, credit to Kirby for getting all his guys invested in the game, to come back. There's a lot of guys that could have opted out that didn't. You had some guys that did transfer or hit the portal that didn't play, but you still had most of the nucleus intact.
Yeah.
And, the younger players are just as talented as those guys, if not more talented than the guys transferring out.
Right. And they also had 11 Bulldogs with at least one rushing attempt throughout that.
I mean,
everyone was eating.
You can't really bash them for pouring it on when they're putting in third stringers.
Yeah.
I mean, Gunnar Stockton came in, had a couple of touchdown passes. I mean, you got to get your young guys some experience. So what better way to do it?
And I'm just going to go over to the other putrid game that actually happened out of the Big Six, is what I'd probably call them. Probably your future college football playoff games for next year when they introduce 12 teams. And thank God they're going to do that after this, because there won't be any argument. The Fiesta Bowl. A lot of people kind of saw this coming as well. Not many people really gave the Liberty Flames any kind of high hope. I mean, they had one really good player who got kind of stomped out. And Caden Salter, he only had like I think 150 total yards of offense.
Yeah,
but
one good drive.
One good drive, the very first one. But Oregon won 45-6. Bo Nix showed out his last game of the year, or really for his collegiate season, and someone that you hope drops down to you in the draft.
I love that
Bo Nix. But
it seems like he's been in college 10 years.
It does. It does. And he went 20-35 for 363 yards, 5 touchdowns, 4 of which were in the second quarter. Yeah. I mean, that's when they really just put it on him.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty close until about midway through that second quarter. And, I mean, they poured it on and didn't let up. I mean, Oregon's really a team that, even with Bo Nix leaving, you got Gabriel coming in from Oklahoma. I think they got another transfer from UCLA coming in, a talented quarterback. So I expect them to be right there in the playoffs next year.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I heard that there was another player. I can't really think of it right off the top of my head, but they actually have another quarterback that might be heading that way too.
They got 2 already coming.
Yeah. So we're going to bounce back to the Cotton Bowl, which actually to me was one of the better games during this bowl season. I mean, there was a few good ones and everything, but most of them you're not really going to really watch the. We're going to just put you in this bowl because we need to put you in a bowl or, something like that. But Cotton Bowl featured Mizzou, who was a big surprise for both me and you.
Big surprise.
We both expected them to be dead last, or at least close to dead last, like Vanderbilt every year. But, Coach, what's his name?
Drinkwitz.
Yeah, Drinkwitz. He really shined out this year. And you could tell from the standpoint that Mizzou really wanted this game. I mean, of course, Ohio State had 9 players opt out in this game, including Marvin Harrison Jr., who I hope will come out in the draft. And, basically their new starter after McCord has transferred. Was it to Nebraska?
No, McCord is going somewhere in the Northeast. Syracuse.
Syracuse?
Yep.
Why?
Syracuse is recruiting like crazy right now.
Well,
they brought in a new coaching staff.
Well, good for them, I guess. I mean,
yeah, I mean, once it was similar to the Florida State scenario. Once your backup quarterback gets knocked out of the game, you're down to your third string quarterback who hasn't played a snap all year.
No.
So I felt bad for Ohio State.
It was Ken Holes.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a bad break. That's just why you got to get your guys some experience in the year. When you're playing those blowout games against Sisters of the Poor, even your third string guys got to get some experience. Because this guy, he looked clueless, and their defense did a really solid job of keeping them in the game and lasted about 3 quarters before they finally bent and finally broke.
Yeah, and I mean, as far as that goes, he faced 58 during his total dropbacks, which I think was like 19. He faced pressure on 58% of them.
Oh yeah,
and he only completed 6 of 17 for 86 yards. Low scoring game, 14-3. Big, really and truthfully, the only star of it was your boy Cody Schrader, who was pretty much the lone bright spot for both teams. And
animal this year.
Yes, he has. And I mean, 29 of 121 and a touchdown. And an otherwise defensive game that had 10 sacks registered by both teams and an abysmal 6 of 31 third down conversions.
Yeah, it was a defensive struggle. I watched pretty much the whole game, but I mean, even Brady Cook had a terrible game. Credit to Ohio State's defense. He had 128 yards, 1 interception. So really, Schrader was the only highlight of the game, the only offense of the game. But like we said, the guy was just a monster this year. And at his size, I don't know where he's going to get drafted, but I'm looking forward to watching him in the pros, hopefully.
I think that he will be drafted probably sometime in the mid rounds. I could see, I personally would love him to be drafted on to, say, my team. Really and truthfully, but I mean, he would definitely fit in pretty much anywhere. I'm trying to get the comments to be able to pop up. We're having some issues with that. This is the first time we've done a live stream that wasn't with the guy that actually showed me how to do this. So if we can't do it, we can't do it. Text us if you know us. So another game that is the Peach Bowl. Ole Miss 38, Penn State 25. I was actually kind of surprised about Allure on this one, because really and truthfully, the whole year I didn't really see him throw the ball that much, but he actually had a pretty decent game. I mean, he still threw under 50%, but he had almost 300 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, they just got so far down towards the end that he was throwing it, every play.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of those stats were kind of padded. But Ole Miss was just a great season for them.
Yeah.
Lane Kiffin, as much as I can't stand the guy for ditching my school, it's like he's just done a fabulous job there. And other than losing close to Alabama, not really close, but losing a hard fought game against Alabama and then getting blown out by Georgia.
Yeah, doesn't really help. That's not a good look.
I'll tell you what's a bad look is Penn State can't win a big game.
No, they can't.
James Franklin, I mean, he's going to keep his job this year, but next year I feel like he's on the hot seat.
Yeah,
he's got to do something.
And I mean, we already knew that Penn State they had the lowest average defensive as far as like with total yards and everything. I think they had a 280 average per game against any of the opponents. But to me, it feels like Big Ten is kind of padded in that stat. And I know I kind of ate those words with my prediction with Alabama and Michigan, but outside the top 3 schools with Big Ten, it's really hard to kind of gauge that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, this seems like what Penn State does every year. They lose to Ohio State, they lose to Michigan, they beat up on everybody else. So I don't know. They just gotta elevate that offense. I know they fired their offense coordinator about a month ago. They gotta find a guy that's going to bring them into the like 2000s. It's like they're stuck in the 1980s or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think Franklin's on the hot seat, and then Ole Miss next year. I mean, the way they're bringing in transfers, like they're getting loaded on the portal.
Yeah, they're going to be a team to reckon with. And I mean, Jackson Dart, he had himself a game, 25 of 40, 379 yards, 3 touchdowns. But to me, the real star of the game was Presscorn, their senior tight end. He caught 10 balls, 136 yards, 2 TDs. And I mean, he really helped his draft stock as far as that goes, because other than this game, I really haven't heard much about him. And then he just exploded.
I was about to say, I mean, where's this guy been all year? He looks like he's like 6'8", about 40 years old, walking around. But I haven't really noticed him all year. The wide receiver's been carrying the load like Trey Harris. But yeah, this guy, he kind of came out of nowhere. I don't know if he was hurt or what, but
no, he showed
big time game.
I was really impressed with him. And, like I said, also like kind of like a Cody Schrader and stuff, someone that you could see them picking up in the mid rounds and stuff like that, and really solidify either their special teams or even really come in. He could probably even start with the way he was playing last night.
Yeah. Yeah. The guy was huge.
Yeah. Okay. So the last 2 games, of course, are the college football playoff games. In the first one, this pains me a little bit, but it was Michigan against Alabama. I, of course, chose Alabama. If you don't see it in the background, it is what it is. But it happens. As far as Michigan goes, congratulations. You made it. You made it to the championship game. You beat my team, and honestly, it was a great game all around, back and forth pretty much throughout the whole game. It looked like Alabama was going to take it. Special teams almost bit it in the butt for Michigan. And it's just miscues that almost killed them, but they were able to score with 1:34 left in the game. And of course, Kareem came in overtime, took it in, and a very confusing play call at the very end for Alabama. But, it is what it is. J.J. McCarthy, who had a really good game pass-wise, 17 of 27, 221 yards, 3 touchdowns. I really didn't think that, and really, I thought the Achilles heel for Michigan in this game was going to be their passing game, because they really didn't do it that much during the season, and they really relied more on their running game. But, it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was over after Alabama went down the fourth quarter and went up 7. I really thought it was over. I didn't think Michigan had it in them. But credit to them, Blake Corum, great on that last drive before overtime. McCarthy, a couple clutch throws. It was really a defensive struggle most of the game. You look at, Milroe's stats, just horrible in this game. I think he barely had over 120 yards passing.
No, I don't even. Just barely. I think he had 135. But 2 fumbles.
Yeah, I mean the fumble. Yeah, that second half fumble or the fourth quarter fumble.
Yeah.
Even though Michigan didn't capitalize on it, they missed a field goal, I believe. It still was a drive that Alabama was about to punch in at least 3 points. So yeah, that was a backbreaker. And just his overall game, he's had such a good season since coming back from getting benched that it just kind of crumbled last night. He just didn't have it. And credit to Michigan's defense. I mean, Michigan's defense is all over him.
Yeah.
Especially in the first half. I mean, what was it, like 5 or 6
sacks?
Yeah.
And in fact, I think 4 in the first 2 drives alone. Yeah. So, I mean, they were killing him.
Yeah, they didn't really spy him, but it seemed like they kept their eyes on him the entire game. Anytime he took off, he usually didn't get very far. And they just, like that last drive, or I'm sorry, the last play, I just would have liked to have seen him get outside the pocket and have the option to throw or pass, throw or run. And going right the middle against this core of that defense, it didn't make any sense.
Yeah, I was going to say with Graham right there, who just made a major play a couple plays before that. But at the beginning of the game, they did a really good job of containing them. And I noticed that whenever they were lining up and everything, it was kind of like almost like a 3-4, but they would spread out two guys wide on the outside shoulders of the tackles, and then they'll rush him on the outside. So that way he couldn't go to left or right because he's a great rollout quarterback.
Yeah. I mean, still had a great season, but yeah, that was not a good game for him. And I don't know. Michigan's just their receivers, they don't look impressive, but they're scrappy. They're all small. They look like they're about 6 foot, maybe.
Oh, Romeo Wilson definitely made the play of the game when he caught that ball. And I mean, it was really impressive. And that, they beat my team, but at the same time, like respects game.
Yeah.
And
and looking back at that replay, I really think if that ball when it got tipped, it probably would have been intercepted.
Probably.
I think tipping it actually slowed it down enough for him to get it, because I think it would have been an overthrow. And I mean that we didn't even mention the interception in the first half where Caleb Downs was standing barely. I mean, there's a lot of went Michigan's way. But played a great game.
Yeah, it was
the hardball.
And what was crazy, you look at some of the games and stuff. There were some good games for the most part. Most of the games were as far as the bowl season. And I don't really pay attention to like the Pop-Tarts Bowl or
that was a decent game.
Cheez-Its Bowl.
You don't want to talk about the Cheez-Its Bowl?
No, man.
I was hoping we'd spend a whole segment on that.
Oh, man. Well, I heard that Stoops got a whole bucket full of Cheez-Its stuffed on them afterwards. I guess they're trying to make up for the Duke Mayonnaise Bowl or something like that. Gross. Last game, and really, to me, I did choose Washington, so I was, got a little bit of redemption. But, this was a game that I really thought that the Huskies offense really showed out what they can actually do. Washington throughout the whole season has been playing with they're very clutch in my eyes. They have that it factor to me. And to me right now, even though Michigan did beat Alabama, who was probably one of the hotter teams in the NCAAs right now, Washington feels like, to me, a team that has just enough on the offensive side of the ball and good enough on defense that they can actually beat Michigan coming up. But, we could talk about that later. They were tied up 21-21 in halftime. Washington, took advantage of 2 turnovers in the second half to really push that lead up to 10. Yeah. And then, they were able to hold off a late push by Texas. And really it came down to one last play where Adonis Mitchell looked like he was about to catch it, and then Elijah Jackson just swatted it out of nowhere. And, both guys, Penix he really showed why he was the runner-up for the Heisman.
Should have won.
Should have probably won. He had over 430 yards in this game. That's not including his rushing yards, which would probably push it up to about 450. But, I mean, him and Ewers just –
Ewers played pretty well too. Yeah, he had 318, 1 touchdown. It's not like he had a bad game.
No.
The thing about Washington is they just have 3 elite playmakers at receiver.
Yeah.
They don't have a great running game, but between Penix and those receivers, it's just hard to keep up with them. You almost have to score on every drive. And that's why I think Michigan is going to have a hard time. Michigan's solid on defense, but do they have enough firepower to keep up with Washington? Because Washington's going to score some points. So it'll be a fun game, though. I'm looking forward to it. A completely different championship game than what we've seen the last 10 years, when it's usually Georgia or Alabama or maybe Clemson thrown in there.
Right.
So I'm looking forward to it. And I think Washington's kind of a team of destiny this year.
Yeah. No, and I agree with that. I'm about to turn off that heater in a second.
A little toasty.
But it's getting kind of warm up in here. It's like a spotlight up in here. But also at the same time with Texas, one of the things that I thought was going to actually hurt them was Jonathan Brooks, of course, got hurt earlier this year. He was phenomenal, a big reason why they won that game against Alabama. But Blue and Baxter did really well as complimentary backs.
Except for the fumbles.
But 207 total yards and 2 touchdowns between them. They really filled in a nice little void. And, other than that, congratulations to Washington.
Well, Texas on the year, I think they gave up an average of 18 points a game. So that defense is really good. I mean, we saw it against Alabama early in the season. But when you give up 532 yards, which is about 50 up to anyone all year, I think second was Oklahoma with about 480 or something. What can you say? I mean, Washington just had a little bit more firepower, and their quarterback's just a little bit better than yours. So that's what it boils down to, quarterback play.
Yeah. And I mean, they had two of the best ones. Well, you could really say three of the, I wouldn't really put McCarthy and
McCarthy.
And Milrow in that, but
he's just an okay quarterback. You talk about game manager. Who was it a couple weeks ago? Was it Cam Newton talking about game managers?
Oh yeah, game changers and game managers.
Yeah, McCarthy is the classic game manager. He played good yesterday, but that's about his ceiling to me. So the other three quarterbacks all had just tremendous years.
Right. Well, we're because we're live, we'll go right on into the rest of the stuff. Next up, in fact, I forgot to use my banners that I did.
Oh, nice. Got fancy banners.
Yeah, I got banners. I got sound effects. I got it all. All right, let me see. There it is.
I got my product placement.
Palm.
Like Nick Saban with his Coke up at the podium every time.
He always made sure he set it down just right. All right, let me get back over to here. All right, banners. Show. All right. Meds Weekly 6 pack. This is basically when I'll sit there and talk about some questions that I'm going to be throwing over at Seth. This week, we're going to be talking about a few different things. But first and foremost, the first thing that we're going to be talking about, Seth, is actually, no, we need to talk about other things. I went way ahead of ourselves. We didn't touch up on anything else that we're going to talk about. So
rewind.
All right, so we did that. Okay, here's one for you. Is Russell Wilson responsible for Denver Broncos collapse? You want to talk about this?
Ooh. I mean, Wilson, he's just been an enigma in Denver. I mean, he hasn't played horrible this year, but he makes too many mistakes, too many head-scratching plays, and Sean Payton's just not a patient man. And we talk about Sean Payton, pretty much his whole career, he had one quarterback until Wilson, and that was Drew Brees. And Drew Brees is one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the history of the game. So I think Payton, he demands excellence from that position, and he's not getting it from Wilson. I don't think it's all Wilson's fault that they've kind of collapsed towards the end here. But, to me, he wants a fresh start with his quarterback. And you look at Wilson's salary, how much it's just kind of eaten up on the salary cap. Obviously, they're going to eat a lot of money if they cut him. But I can't see Wilson being on this team next year, not after benching him.
Yeah, me personally, I don't think it's really his fault with what was really going on. When I think really and truthfully, when you really look at what happened with him, is they offered him a extremely lucrative contract that already weighed in. You look at all the picks and everything that were given to him, 4 that were in the top 64. And then you also had 3 guys that contributed also with the Seahawks after they traded him. And, he's had actually a really good year this year. He's gone for over 3,000 yards, 26 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. He's fumbled 3 times, but he scored 3 touchdowns. So if you really look at it, it's like 29 and 18 as far as like his turnovers go. But
I think it's his quarterback rating. You look at his quarterback rating, it's low. It's like low 50s, which your good quarterbacks are usually high 60s, low 70s. So, it's not all his fault, but, I think Peyton is just kind of making a power play and saying, look, I want my quarterback.
No, and I think he's going to try to go for it because right now the Broncos are sitting with the 14th overall pick, and they're turning it over to Jarrett Stidham, who is 0-2 with a 73.5 quarterback rating. So, I mean, 6 touchdowns, 7 interceptions.
Yeah, I mean, Stidham's not going to be your future quarterback, but, you're just going to have to eat some money and take another quarterback unless they trade for one. I don't know who you would trade for, though, at this point.
I wouldn't even trade for one.
Yeah,
I mean,
there's not much out there.
Yeah, you're really not going to get much. What are you going to get? Zach Wilson? I mean,
they can have a Falcons quarterback, either one of them, Ritter or Heineke.
Ooh, well, I would choose Heineke over those two. That's for sure. So the Detroit Pistons. They have since
Bad boys.
the bad boys. Well, emphasis on bad boys. Oh, we got looks like we got a comment.
Oh, really? That's exciting.
It didn't even say it. No, never mind. Sorry. So really and truthfully, right now, the bad boys. Detroit set an all-time consecutive loss record in NBA. Will they be the worst team of all time? Would they be like the Charlotte Bobcats of 2011, 2012, where they had a .106 winning percentage? Or will they be like the 76ers who lost 73 games?
I think they'll surpass both of those terrible teams. That Bobcat team was atrocious. I don't remember much about 72 Sixers because I wasn't born yet, but just looking at that Bobcat roster, and I remember a little bit about that season. I think it was Gerald Henderson and Corey Maggette led the team with about 15 points a game. And those two guys shouldn't be leading you in anything, if you're a good team. So the Pistons, obviously, have had a rough start, but, Chad Cunningham, I think he's a star in the making. I think he's averaged about 23 points a game. And lately, they've been really close. They won the game the other night against, was it Toronto? To finally snap the streak. Mm-hmm. And they've been getting better and better, closer and closer. They gave the Celtics a really good game. I just think they'll easily win at least 10. So what do we like, about a third of the way through the season, maybe? Maybe not even a third. But, yeah, I don't think you have to worry about them being worse than those two teams.
Yeah, I'm trying to get the whole comment thing set all up. And I got some notes and stuff. I am.
I really don't get into basketball too much until after football, but it's
something that caught our eye.
Yeah, I mean, when you go 2-30, it's just something you can't ignore. And I've been watching Cunningham a little bit on highlights, and I remember him a little bit from Oklahoma State. The guy is a player. So yeah, it's tough for the Piston fans right now, but at least you have a little something to look forward to. You're a young team, inexperienced. You're not mentally tough yet, but you're growing and you have something to build with.
Yeah, and there's a lot of problems first of all, they hired a coach in the offseason, Monty Williams, who was Phoenix's old coach. And I mean, they dropped a bag on him for $78.5 million.
Yeah, I mean, how many places has this guy been? I feel like he's been about 5 different teams.
Yeah, he's at least been to 3 that I can think of, because I know he was New Orleans and then Phoenix, and I want to say he was like Raptors at one time too.
God, they recycle coaches like crazy in the NBA.
So also another fact that I pulled up is in the past 15 years, the Pistons are the only NBA team without a playoff win.
Wow, that's a good stat.
Yep.
Yeah, the Pistons is since that the era with Ben Wallace and Chauncey Billups, it's been rough.
I used to have a big Ben jersey and everything. I loved it when he would come out. You heard Big Ben, boom, boom,
yeah.
And
God, I mean, they weren't the prettiest team to watch.
No,
but those guys were freaking physical. They were grown men.
Yeah, if there was a team that really emphasized what their city was for.
Mm-hmm.
Back on stage.
We flip-flopped.
Yeah, you're up top now. So what I'm going to do is, because we can't really get the comments on here, I'll click that off and move us over to here.
Ooh, nice.
All right, so the 6-pack. Let me get the banners back up. Is basically, like I said earlier when I was talking about it, I ask questions, he answers them, and I answer them in kind, and we'll see what happens. But first things first, shout out to our boy Andy O'Neill, who brought up this little tidbit. Actually just saw it broadcasted on ESPN, so we're ahead of the game, I guess, and if we would have actually reported it then and there. But what is your take on the rumors of Jim Harbaugh bolting to LA to coach the Chargers? See what they did there.
Yeah, I've been kind of thinking that's going to happen for several weeks, with the whole controversy, 2 suspensions this year. Just seems like a lot of baggage with Harbaugh.
Was it just 2? It feels like 3.
2 suspensions this year, right? 2 3-game suspensions.
Yeah.
So I've been going back and forth because I'm like, okay, if they win the national title, there's no way he's going to leave, right?
Mm-hmm.
And here you are, they're in the title game. But it just seems like too much of a good fit for him to go to the Chargers. He just, to me, he simplifies like the ultimate NFL coach, everything you're looking for. Obviously, his brother is doing a phenomenal job in Baltimore. And I just think college comes with so many different factors that you can't control.
A lot of red tape.
Yeah, it's just so much. And just look at what he's faced this year, based on some little ticky-tack stuff that really to me wasn't that big of a deal. But I don't know. It seems like it makes sense. I think any team with an opening would love to have Harbaugh, and they're going to throw a ton of money now. And the Chargers have, to me, a pretty good roster compared to some of the that are going to be looking for a head coach. So I think it'll happen. I don't lose the national title game.
Mm-hmm. Well, the way that you kind of pointed out a good thing. I mean, it might not necessarily be the Chargers when it was brought up to him during a
yeah.
And a lot of people remember how he left at San Francisco. He left in a match on the bridge, both middle fingers up. Was the GM at the time for the 49ers, and he has ascended his throne of lies up top the Big Ten over in Michigan. Of course, but he pretty much has reached I wouldn't say, well, a godhood status up there in Ann Arbor, because I mean, whenever you talk to a Michigan fan right now about Jim Harbaugh possibly leaving, they're like, no, we're going. And
they don't even think it's a possibility.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, you can give a man $100 million, but if he wants to approach his dream for $99 million, I'm guaranteeing you he's going to probably go for the $99 million.
Yeah. I mean, I think he still might face some future consequences, for the actions earlier in the season with the violations. Was it recruiting violations during the COVID? I'm getting them mixed up. Once they got
it was the COVID
they got
ones.
the notice of allegation or the formal allegations that a week or two ago. So future punishment for that. I mean, as a coach,
I think he's a great coach.
And it'll be a tough decision. I don't the way, but if I had to put money on it, I'd see him in the NFL next year. And the Chargers just seem like the best fit.
Oh yeah, you'll have two, well, at least one good receiver. Johnson, the bug's still out on him. And if Austin Eckler was to actually stay there, you also got his on defense. You just, they just didn't have a defensive scheme to where they could actually, stop crap coming out from the baby's diaper. I mean, it's just one of those deals where it just wasn't fitting right with Staley.
Yeah. Well, I actually thought before the Bears kind of went on a little, then that they might be, an option played up, but now it'll just be standing. Hear that?
But you're probably right. Number 2. Okay, it's that one. So, bubble team for the AFC. Right now, there's because you brought up everything right 10 minutes before we got on there. Right now, there are really 3 bubble teams. In fact, I think, let me check. Okay. Now, the Ravens, the Chiefs are in. The teams that I said, them really blowing it. Bills are all but in. And so really and truthfully, you have really 2 spots that are open, and all the teams, including the Steelers, are pretty much, well, not even Steelers, but you have the Jaguars, you got the Colts, you got the Texans, you got the Steelers vying for 2 spots at this moment. I'm looking at NFL latest playoff stuff right now. In your opinion, who do you think has got the best chance of winning it? Because I know the Texans and Colts play each other this week.
Mm-hmm. I mean, definitely think Buffalo gets in, and Jacksonville. I mean, you're right. They've been really choking towards the end of the season, but they do play the Titans in their last game. So I think I'll still stick with Jacksonville, even though I'd like to see Houston get in.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I go with Jacksonville just because I don't think the Titans will put up much of a fight. And I think Levis might be out for this game, or I know he was injured. I'm not sure if he's going to be playing this weekend or not.
So you're saying they might have Tanny?
Ooh, yeah. If they have Tanny, it's definitely over.
Well, then that also means that, as far as last piece, because Steelers play Baltimore, which unless Baltimore is resting their starters, will not have a chance.
Which they may very well rest some of them.
They might. And that right now they are on the outside looking in, but that leaves Indianapolis against Houston. And I guess you can put on your prediction hat. And who would you actually take in that game?
Oh, I would take Houston. Yeah, it's still, I don't know. I like Stroud. I mean, he's still, even though he's kind of slowed down towards the end of the season,
he's beat up now.
He's still better than Minshew. And I think Minshew is decent, but yeah, I just don't trust the Colts.
Yeah. And I'm because Minshew, he's the modern day Fitzpatrick in my eyes. He keeps both teams in the game. I was thinking Indianapolis at first, but now you kind of turned me over to the Houston side. So I could see Houston making it. And, could you see the Dolphins going 1-out?
Oh, yeah.
Especially after Chubb has been diagnosed, was
torn ACL, right?
ACL, he's done.
Yeah, I could easily see Miami going out. I'm trying to figure out who they would be matching up with more than likely in their first round game.
Well, there'd be a wild card. Top wild card. So whoever's in the South.
Yeah, I could see them losing. Possibly. Yeah. I would still pick them against anybody from the South, but I wouldn't be shocked if they lost.
No, they've only beat two teams that have a 500 record.
Yeah, I mean, they get annihilated by last weekend. We talked about it seems like they're a little soft.
Yeah.
In big games.
Soft.
I don't trust them at all.
Yeah.
Sorry, Devin.
Yeah, not sorry. Number 3. Pretty much switching it over to the NFC and everything like that. The Rams did make it in and everything. When I first wrote this, basically I went through all the teams and all that. I do have a no cap stat after these two. But right now, from the looks at it, you got the 49ers that are in, Cowboys are in. Lions took their first ever division title since 1993. Congratulations, Detroit.
Golly, insane. Yeah, I was like a freshman in high school.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
I was in middle school. What are you talking about? You got the Eagles that are in, you got the Rams that are in. Right now, the NFC South, like, I don't know what it is about the two South divisions right now.
It's a dumpster fire.
They just don't want to win. Like, hey, you do it. No, you do it. But whoever wins the South, right now they have the Buccaneers doing it, and they were the guy that I thought was going to close it out last week, but they proved me wrong. And you got the Packers, you got the Seahawks, you got the Saints, and I don't know how they're both in it, but you also have the Vikings and the Falcons.
Yeah. I definitely think Tampa's in. I mean, they're playing Carolina, for God's sake.
Yeah. I mean, what else can you do?
Oh, man. Yeah, it's a mess. It's just – so they still got 2 spots available?
Well, that's pretty much it right there. You have whoever wins the South, which right now the Saints and Buccaneers both are at 8-8. And I believe the Saints play the Falcons, if I remember correctly. So, but
I'm assuming Green Bay gets in if they win, right? If they beat Chicago.
If they're winning, they in. Right now they're at the 7th seed.
So give me Green Bay and give me who was the other one?
Be dirty.
That's tough. It's tough. I can't pick the Falcons after the way they've looked with the quarterbacks.
No, I think y'all going to get y'all's quarterback of the future in this draft.
Yeah, I hope so. I don't know. Who are you taking?
I think the Buccaneers will take it. And I mean,
that still leaves one spot there, right?
Yeah, that'll leave one more spot, and that'll be the Buccaneers. Not the Buccaneers, but the Packers. I really do.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're going to. because it's one of those. Yeah, they'll probably beat us. I mean,
I think it'll be a good game.
It'll be a better game than the last game. I hope so.
Yeah,
God knows.
the Bears have come around. Was it 4
Yeah.
out of the last 5?
Yeah.
I mean, they just trashed my Falcons.
The defense has definitely come around. But yeah,
now you got some comments coming up.
Do I?
Best quarterback in the NFL this year. Worst quarterback.
Ooh. Best quarterback.
Whoever's playing for the Falcons would be the worst.
Well, worst quarterback was Boyle, who I guess was playing with the New York Jets when he took over for Zach Wilson.
Who's got a worse quarterback situation, the Falcons or the Jets? It's tough.
Falcons. Because the Jets are at least getting Aaron Rodgers back.
Yeah, that's true. There's been a lot of bad quarterback play this year, and some of it's because of injuries. But like you said, Rodgers going out that early, just was a nightmare scenario for a promising season with the Jets. We're kind of getting off topic, I guess, but
oh well. I mean, someone asked, and I mean, I'm all about getting questions. So thank you.
Best quarterback though, who would you say? You got to go with Jackson, right?
Jackson turns the ball over a lot. I read up on his stats. Right now, I think he has 18 turnovers. I mean, he's winning games.
Does he?
Yes, he has 18 turnovers. But right now, I mean, I kind of look out west and I look at Purdy. I mean, it's just one of those things. He had that 3-game stretch where he lost against Cleveland, Cincinnati, and I want to say Minnesota, but I'm not sure about that. But I know he lost to Cleveland and Cincinnati. But for the most part, and also you just lost to who did San Francisco? Baltimore.
Yeah.
So
yeah, they got beat down.
But I mean, for the most part, Purdy did all right. I mean,
still leading the league, I think, in quarterback rating.
Josh Allen right now.
Oh, really? Did you overtake him?
I think you could. I mean, the way that the Bills have been coming back
yeah.
on fire and everything, and the fact that he's just been balling out for the past.
Well, last weekend he didn't have a very good game. I mean, it was just, you know, decent for Josh Allen standards, but I still like Jackson. I mean, I think he's going to win the MVP going away. He's just, yeah, he does have some turnovers, but I don't know, between the run game and the pass game, they finally got him some receivers.
Yeah.
I mean, Zay Flowers likely came in, stepped in for Andrews, playing well. So I don't know. I still got Jackson as my guy.
Does it really feel like the MVP award has become more of a quarterback award to you?
Pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you just have an insane season, which Tyreek Hill was kind of on pace there for a little while and had the, you know, little injuries kind of slowed him down, but you just have to have an insane season to overtake these quarterbacks.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And McCaffrey, he was in my top 3 for MVP, but I still think a quarterback will get it over a running back.
Yep. So, question number 4. Oh, before I get to the 4th question, the last time a division had 4 participants in the playoffs. Now I did with each conference. 1994, the NFC Central had the Vikings, Bears, Packers, and Lions all make it to the playoffs.
Wow.
With the Vikings winning the division 10-6. The other 3 teams 9-7. 1998, the AFC East, Jets. This is back when they had Testaverde and Bill Parcells. 12-4. Bills and Dolphins were 10-6, and the Patriots with Pete Carroll was 9-7.
Wow. Yeah, I barely remember Pete Carroll being in the Patriots, but that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's your no cap stat.
That's pretty good. That's been a long time.
Pulled that one out. I guess I'll pop this one open again.
Oh, it deserves it.
Yeah. Out of Justin Fields, Kenny Pickett, Desmond Riddler, and Sam Howell, who do you think has the best chance and worst chance of returning as a starter for their respective team next season?
I know you probably won't agree with me, but I'm going to go with Justin Fields. He hasn't been perfect by any means, but with the way the Bears have kind of closed strong down the stretch, I can't see him pulling the plug and starting over again.
No, I agree with you on that.
His numbers aren't going to blow you away, but winning 4 out of the last 5 is a big positive. His running ability is a good fit for what they do. It's just hard to make an argument for any of these other guys like Ritter, Howell, Pickett. He played so bad. I don't know how in the world Pittsburgh is 9-7. But I had kind of had him as my dark horse going into the season to break out. And God,
he just sucked it up.
And then with the injury, who knows what Pittsburgh's going to do.
And then you had the rumor that, he said that he was ready for him to actually play. And they're like, no, we'll go with Mason Rudolph.
Yeah.
I mean, how does that feel?
Yeah, I mean, after a promising start, Sam Howell has just really fizzled. He just reminds me a little bit of Ron Fitzpatrick, which didn't you mention Ron Fitzpatrick earlier? Just the way his inconsistent play, the peaks and valleys, you get like a tremendous game and then just a horrible game from him. I don't think you can trust him. So, yeah, I think it's Fields for me.
And Sam Howell just recently he's going to be benched for Brissett. And I mean, Jacoby, I think, was a decent, serviceable quarterback. For the most part, I would say, when I first put up this question, Fields was pretty much the only one I could really sit at and be like, okay, I could see him coming back as a starter for the Bears because, like you just said, he played really good yesterday. And he's been serviceable, but at the very end, it just feels like he always makes a crucial mistake at the most crucial time, like either a fumble or an interception or anything like that. And for a while there, I thought he was going to be gone. Now, as far as the other three are concerned, I mean, when your coach looks at you and is like, nah, bro, I'm good. I'll go with Mason. I mean, that's saying a lot for Kenny Pickett. And Desmond Ridder, we've been bagging on this guy pretty much throughout the whole year. Unfortunately for you, you've been.
Yeah, it's just the back and forth drives me crazy. It's Heineke 1 week, Ridder the next week, Heineke, Ridder, back and forth. Both guys are terrible. It's time to just take another quarterback. I know it's only been 2 years, but we really played like a couple games last year and then this year. I mean, you can tell he just doesn't have it.
Yeah, and I really thought, Sam Howell was my breakout player. At the same time, I think they might have benched him as an act of mercy at this point. I mean, the dude's been sacked 60 times.
Yeah, he's been getting killed.
And, he had 2 games to go, and then they were like, you know what? You go ahead and sit down, young buck. you're getting the crap kicked out of you.
Yeah, I could see him giving another chance next year, but if I had to put money on it, Fields is the one that I would roll with.
Yeah.
And hopefully –
who would be the worst out of the other 3, though? That's tough now.
I mean, the worst has to be Ridder to me.
Yeah.
At least Howell has shown something.
Well, and I was watching a video on when I was researching this question a little bit after I came up with it on Sam Howell, and what the Jets were doing. They were rushing like 3-4 people at a time and then dropping everyone else into zone. And he just could not make the read.
Yeah.
And, he could have checked it down. He could have did anything with it, but he would choose to run it. And I think that's the same thing that you find with Ridder as an issue, because Ridder will go back there and it's just like a blank. And he'll throw it to his first option, but he won't throw it to anyone else. Yeah,
he just locks in on people and then just abandons the pocket too quickly and takes off. And he's just not an elite runner. So he's a decent runner. But with all those quarterbacks out there this year in the draft, I mean, I'll drive to Oregon myself and pick up Bo Nix.
Give him a back rub the whole way.
But yeah, it's time to move on, and I'd be fine if they moved on and the new coach too. But that's another discussion.
Oh, I'm pretty sure we're going to discuss that, especially when we start talking about like off-season stuff and everything like that.
Plenty of time for that.
Yeah. So, number 5. Will Saquon Barkley return as a Giant next year?
He says he wants to stay, but I just don't see it. You got all that money invested in a quarterback that's been mediocre at best, and you can only offer him so much. Running back just isn't a premium anymore. He won't finish with 1,000 yards, I don't think, unless he has a really good game this week. And, that'll be 1,000-yard season in his last 4 if he doesn't make it this week. I mean, just by comparison, look at second-year running back James Cook, who's making $1.3 million, has better rushing numbers, better receiving numbers than Barkley, and Barkley's making $10 million. So, I mean, DeBall, he's a New England guy, so he saw all those years how they could get by with just serviceable running backs, just decent run back play. So I think he's going to go all in, get some more playmakers in there, and I just can't see him. You have too much money in quarterback. I don't think they're going to cut Jones and eat all that money, even though I'm sure a lot of Giants fans would love them to. But, if they could get maybe a trade before the draft, a trade partner for Barkley, pick up possibly even like a 3rd-round pick, that might be better than nothing.
Yeah. I think that, basically it's already written. I mean, we kind of wondered what was going to happen, especially after it looked like they chose who they wanted, and unfortunately, they chose wrong. Daniel Jones is not the guy, and they're realizing that now.
Yeah.
Barkley, he is what you would consider, I guess, a generational talent, especially when he's actually healthy. I mean, he could change the game for you. I mean, he's that guy.
He's always dinged up, though.
He is.
Even though he hasn't had a severe injury this year, he's always dinged up.
But,
yeah, I love Barkley. I mean, I would take him, on my team any day. I just think these days, running back, you can just get a guy, second, third rounder, plug him in, and
use him for the 4 years, and then
get
another one.
Yeah.
And then that's one of the other things. They need a better quarterback for Dave DeBall. I mean, you have Tommy DeVito, who's actually been really good, serviceable at best.
Yeah, serviceable.
But they don't have any. They have below average receivers, besides Darren Waller.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
And even then, he's been having a meh season.
Always hurt.
And, they basically put all their chips on Vanilla Vic, who has just been absolutely abysmal this year. And, of course, Julian Love, who was their star safety that really helped hold that defense together last year, he bolted for Seattle, and it really showed. But, yeah, no, Saquon I could see being gone, and it'd be just too expensive for them to retain. And really and truthfully, if I was the Giants, it's time to hit the reset button.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you've got much bigger needs than running back to put that money into. And I mean, talking about receiver, Jalen Hyatt, I think everybody knew he wasn't going to be a year one major contributor. I think you're looking at playing the long game with him.
Yeah.
So
2-3 years out.
Yeah, he wasn't an impact player this year. You've got to get another receiver, which there should be a couple available when they pick in this draft. So, yeah, I mean, running back's the least of your concerns.
Yeah. And number 6. I wonder if they actually hear the sound effects. I guess I'll find out later. Will this season be Coach Belichick's swan song after an illustrious career at the helm of the Patriots?
I feel like we've talked about this a few times this year, but, man, it probably should be, but I don't think it will be. I think he's too stubborn, has too much pride to walk away after a season like this, and I feel like Robert Kraft is afraid of him. So the only option is for him to try, to fix it one last time. With a top 5 pick, I think he'll be finally forced to draft a playmaker, and they have a lot of money to spend in free agency. I think last time I looked, it was like $70-something million. Most of the mock drafts I've looked at have them taking either Drake May or Jaden Daniels. So I think Belichick will try to get him back to respectability next year, and then he'll hang it up for good. I don't know if he'll pass it down to his son or if they'll just go outside the Patriot family, bring in a whole new coaching staff. But yeah, I mean, I think they've kind of shown some toughness down the stretch.
Yeah.
They don't have many wins, but they haven't just folded, and they could have. Bailey Zappi has been playing okay.
They lost their defensive leader in Matthew Judon.
Yeah, but the defense is still
hidden.
Yeah, they held the Bills, pretty low last weekend. So, they're still fighting. I just don't think Belichick's the kind of guy that's just going to call it quits after a year like this.
No. And me personally, I actually think that he will quit after this. I think the game has actually passed him by.
Well, I agree with that.
It used to be defense, cloud of dust, run the ball 3 times in a row, and then punt if you didn't make it. But I mean, really and truthfully, and I've said this many, many times. I know I said it earlier this year. Like you said, this is a question that keeps popping up. And, I really think that he really benefited from the career of Brady as opposed to Brady benefiting from his career. And
it's hard to argue that now.
And, as far as his replacement goes, I think that's why they brought back Bill O'Brien. I mean, he was already a Belichick guy to begin with. And like you said, would Kraft really go for someone outside of the Belichick tree? And, it's one of those deals where I'm just like, I don't know. Like you said, Kraft doesn't normally stray away from their guys. And
no, I mean, I think it's time to
Patriot way.
Get some fresh thinking in there. I just don't see it happening this offseason, but it might. I mean, I know Patriot fans are probably about ready for a change.
Definitely. So That does it with the 6-pack. We'll be moving on over to SftS Spotlight. And you need a moment?
Oh, just a second here. Only take me a second. I'm so good with technology.
I'm glad one of us is.
I'm just kidding. Okay. We're ready.
You go for it.
All right. So this is the SEC Spotlight, and more college too.
Get a little bit of college up in there.
But yeah, so end of the season, the bowls are almost over. I'm going to go with the SEC East, just kind of a report card for the SEC West next week, hopefully. We'll start with Georgia once again, SEC East champion, A-. The loss, and if you have a opinion, chime in anytime. The loss to Bama kept them from another perfect season and possibly a third straight national title. I think they were just missing that Jalen Carter type dude up front to create havoc. They had a really good defense, and obviously the quarterback played phenomenal.
Right.
And Bobo came in, offense coordinator. They didn't really miss a beat. But I think Jalen Carter, that type of player, and Alabama used to have those guys too, like Quentin Williams.
Oh, they'd just plug and play.
Yeah, just monsters up front.
Deron Payne.
Yep.
Allen.
I mean, just on and on. But I think Georgia was just missing that kind of guy, and I'm sure they probably have a couple ready to step in next year. But that's the only thing that kept them from A+. But Mizzou, I will give them an A+, just because their standards aren't nearly as high as Georgia. Possibly their best season ever, capped off by a Cotton Bowl win over a shorthanded Ohio State team. Schrader, he'll be leaving, but they return most of that nucleus for next year. So I see them still being a really solid team next year. I mean, obviously the division will all be one. It won't be East and West anymore, but I see them being in the top half going forward of the SEC. Moving on, number 3, I've got Tennessee. I give them a B-. I mean, I'm a huge fan, but it was just kind of a mediocre season. The expectations obviously were off the charts after a 2022, just great season. But the Florida loss, that was really inexcusable. But the future, we got a little peek at it. It was over the weekend with Nico. It was rough at times with the offensive line, but he did rush for 3 touchdowns.
He did actually had a really good game.
I mean, for a freshman, yeah, first game ever.
I mean, Iowa.
So hopefully the future is bright for them. But that Florida loss, man, that just left a bad taste in my mouth. So then we go on to Kentucky. I'll give them a C+. This is about the norm for the Wildcats,
and that's a team that really right there. I mean, I can talk a little bit about Georgia too. I think the really reason why they lost the Alabama game was because Alabama fell into that lull where they expected themselves to basically just walk in and win the game, and I think that kind of happened in the SEC championship.
Yeah,
but as far as like Kentucky's concerned, when they had Devin Leary come in as their quarterback, I think we both expected him to do so much better, and he just fell flat on his face.
Yeah, that was disappointing. Leary, he had a couple of decent games, but he really wasn't an improvement over Levis, and that surprised me because he was so good at NC State. But really, the loss to South Carolina kept this from being a really solid season for them. They dominated Florida. That was a big win for them. But losing to South Carolina towards the end of the season, that really kept the season from being, I guess, what you would consider a success.
Yeah.
So the big question is, will Brock Vandagriff be an upgrade over Levis and Leary? We'll see. I mean, he's always been the backup for Georgia.
Right.
Never really got a lot of playing time, meaningful playing time. So I'm not really sure what to expect from Vandagriff.
And I mean, they're going to be losing their top playmaker, who was Ray Davis. I mean, was it Ray Davis?
Yeah, Ray Davis had a great year.
Had a great year. I mean, he had a great year when he was with Vanderbilt, but he had an even better year this year. And, he's graduating, I think, after this season, and, he's done.
Yeah, they're hitting the portal hard. So I expect them to still be competitive next year. I just think 7, maybe 8 wins is pretty much the cap for Kentucky. You don't get much better than that. So moving on to Florida. Sorry, Florida fans. I mean, yeah, you beat Tennessee, but overall the season was a failure. I'll give them a C-. It's kind of inexcusable to be 5-7 at a school like Florida, where you can recruit all kinds of talent in your backyard.
And that second half collapse.
Yeah, I mean, like 2 years in a row, they've had a second year late season collapse. Billy Napier is recruiting better than what Dan Mullen was doing, top 10 classes. But the problem is, a lot of these guys are transferring out, like ETN. You know, after a couple of years, one of your biggest recruits, one of your best players, transferring over to Georgia. So it's not a good look. You know,
your biggest rival.
Yeah, I mean,
I know that you and Tennessee and Florida have a huge rivalry too, but I mean,
yeah, it's just not good. He had, you know, that one good win over Tennessee. Can you think of another win you would really say was a statement win for Florida this year?
No. Not at all.
So I think next year it's make or break for Billy. He's got to have at least, I think, 8-9 wins just to survive.
I agree with that.
So, yeah, good luck to Florida next year. Well, I'm not going to say good luck, but moving on to South Carolina, I'll give them a D. And if Andy's listening out there, maybe he'll chime in. But they always play better at the end of the season. They always try to salvage, you know, the respectability at the end of the season. But, you know, they did win against a terrible Mississippi State team, Vandy, and then a mediocre Kentucky team. I will say that Rattler and Leggett were two of my favorite players to watch this season. The guys just balled out. You know, those two
That's
right
all
there.
they had.
If they had more guys like that, you know, they could have been a great team. But, you know, Beamer, he's doing decent recruiting, has usually like between number 15 and number 20 class. And they have added already Rocket Sanders at running back to the portal. So running back looks like it might be a strength next year, which this year was just a real big weakness. Yeah. So just like Napier, I feel like next year you don't have a big improvement, Beamer is going to be in trouble. He might not be on a hot seat like Napier, but it's getting warm.
No, it's definitely warm. I mean, to me, it just felt like South Carolina just took a huge step backwards, especially with all the progress they had. You know, you had year one, you had year two where they improved, and now you got this year, and it's like,
yeah, and just like with Florida, one of your best players transferring to another SEC school, Juice Wells. You know, that has to be concerning. So they're always gonna be last on this list. We got Vandy. I'll give them an F. You know, I feel bad for them because I like their head coach, but 0 wins in the league. Yeah. 0 wins in league play is not where you expected to be after a pretty solid 22 season. Lost 10 in a row after beating their first 2 non-conference games. I think Hawaii and somebody else. So your quarterback transferred out to LSU. You know, first order of business is finding some stability at quarterback, and they're going to be hitting the portal hard. That's their only choice because they can't recruit.
And, you know, they also have another hurdle is that they have to have at least a 4.0.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be ruled out quickly.
Yeah, I wouldn't even be on the practice squad.
So the one bit of good news is the stadium expansion is almost complete. It may be actually, but
for Vanderbilt,
yeah.
Why?
Yeah, they expanded the stadium.
Why would they expand it? I mean, so many people are rushing to get that ticket. Let me tell you.
You know, when the opposing fans come to a stadium, they want to be nice. So, you know,
be accommodating.
Exactly. But I mean, that's pretty much the SEC for the SEC East for this year. We'll do the West next week.
Okay.
But you know, I think overall, Georgia and Mizzou really the only truly successful seasons out of the East this year, in my eyes.
Yeah, I mean there's a good bit of disappointment as far as like a few of the SEC East teams. I mean, really and truthfully, we talked about, like you said, Tennessee has a really, in my opinion, I can see them having a bright future with Almeida. Did I pronounce that right?
I'll just say Nico. It's a lot easier.
Yeah, with Nico. You know.
Yeah, I mean, 9 wins isn't bad. I think just after the
pretty good
22 season when you won 11 games or 10.
And we're in the national championship talks and everything.
Right.
But yeah, y'all's defense definitely was better this year, though.
That's the big difference. I mean, if you don't have a great defense, especially with Texas, Oklahoma coming in, you can only do so much. I mean, Georgia, Alabama, Texas, these elite defenses, you got to have both.
Win 5 stars, back up 5 stars.
Yep, you got to have the depth.
Yeah,
gotta have it.
And so this pretty much almost concludes it. But I did have a little extra segment called Overtime where you can talk about anything that you want to talk about that's sports related. You know, something you watched or just anything in particular.
Man, I think the big thing to me, and we talked about doing this with the 6-pack, was do you see anyone in the AFC or NFC that's a true dark horse in the playoffs, somebody that could kind of come out of nowhere? I don't want to say nowhere, but, you know, a team that nobody's kind of picking to go to the Super Bowl that might upset, let's say you're like Baltimore or San Francisco.
I'd say Cleveland.
Cleveland.
Yeah. I think that with that defense, Flacco, I mean, I'm not too overexcited with Flacco, but I mean, the rest of that team, I really do like him. Flacco is playing really well. I mean, a lot of people forget he won a Super Bowl.
Oh my God. I mean,
And
Flacco's been unreal lately.
yeah, and you know, the
What is he,
reason
40?
he's up there with us.
Man, he must have got some good rest last year.
Exactly. You know, he's about to get his 1% off of his taxes or sales tax. But
I did not see that come after losing Nick Chubb early in the season and then losing
Jerome Ford has just been killing it though. And I mean, Kareem Hunt, when he actually goes in there, he, you know, gets some 3 yards here, 3 yards there. But I mean, Jerome Ford's been doing really good. Cooper's really, meshed really well with Falco. But to me, it's that defense, and that defense is a Super Bowl caliber defense.
Yeah,
and really and truthfully, it kind of reminds me in a lot of ways.
Up anybody.
Yeah, I mean that defense is killer. And you know, if you were to actually say dark horse on the NFC side, I actually picked the Rams.
Yeah.
And I mean,
I was going to say the same thing.
Kyron Williams, ever since he's stepped up as their running back, he's really put that offense on his back for the most part.
Yeah, apologies to Stafford. You know, early in the season, I think I kind of bashed on him a little bit. The guy's had a great season. You know, just McVay is a heck of a coach. Yeah. I know he's already said he's coming back next year, which I didn't even know there was a question if he was.
Yeah, I was actually kind of surprised about that when I was kind of taken back from it. Like, okay, you know, I didn't know you were going.
Right. So, yeah. And then you got Nakua and you got Cup at receiver. So that is a team that can score some points. Yeah. So I agree with you completely on the Rams.
Yeah. So do you have a team that you would think dark horse?
In the AFC, I just can't see it. I mean, that's a good call on Cleveland. I mean, if anybody's going to do it, a defense like that might be able to shut down Baltimore if they match up with them. But yeah, I mean, let's say the Texans get in. Who are the other teams? That would be kind of a dark horse on that side. I don't really consider the Bills a dark horse because the Bills have
they've been hot lately.
Yeah. So yeah, I think you're pretty spot on with the Browns and Rams.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, for my one thing that I can actually add to it is I've been watching a lot of sports documentaries lately, and I actually watched Bye Bye Barry, which is on
I've been meaning to watch that.
Dude, very good. And, you know, it really chronicles his whole career about how it was and everything. And, you know, I made a hot take not too long ago, and I know you commented on it about me talking about Emmitt Smith not even being a top 3. I don't even think top 5 personally. And we will talk about that in another episode. But
I still think I'd have him in my top 5, even though I didn't like the Cowboys and Emmitt Smith back then.
I mean, you look at who he was running behind.
Yeah, he had a lot of built-in advantages.
Yeah. So, but anyway, he goes all the way up to when he actually retires, and his whole meaning of retiring is he just lost his desire to play. I mean, if you're getting the crap beat out of you and your team's finishing 6-10, 7-9 and stuff, not hardly making the playoffs. I mean, I think I would want to probably hang it up too, because after a while you just get tired of it.
I know Barry wasn't that kind of guy, but I almost wish he would have demanded a trade at some point, and Detroit would have just said, you know what, you deserve to play for a winner. You know, we're going to send you out, kind of like they sent Stafford to the Rams.
Did you know that the Jets released Dalvin Cook today?
Did they really?
Yeah,
I forgot about Dalvin Cook, to be honest.
They legit let Dalvin Cook walk because they wanted him to get a chance to go play for a contender.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's kind of big of them. I mean, I think the Vikings, they pretty much knew it was done for Dalvin Cook. You know, I think before the season when they let him go, people were surprised. But, you know, at running back, it just seems like you just hit a wall.
Right.
You know, and you're just done one day. And I think Dalvin Cook's, that's where he is right now. But yeah, that's still considerate of him. I don't know who he'll hook on with this late, but who knows? Maybe he'll get some playing time in the playoffs.
Cleveland.
another just retread running back.
Yeah, another retread running back. Well, that does it for us for today, this week anyway. Next week, we'll have some more stuff to talk about. We'll be talking about, of course, playoff previews. Of course, the college football championship will be next Monday. And then we'll be looking into probably state of the franchise, like try to discuss some things with what we think that they should actually do as far as, you know, teams like, I guess, the Giants, the Jets, teams like that, see what we think that they should actually look towards as far as draft goes and free agents.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Oh, is there time for one more shout out?
Go for it.
Our fantasy champion of our league.
Oh, yeah.
Daniel.
Mr. Daniel Glass.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if he's watching right now, but
Oh, he's not. I could see no one.
Props to you, Daniel.
Yeah.
That was a great job. You kind of were the underdog most of the season, and you just pulled it out.
Yeah, he was like sitting there fist pumping like a champ after when I put up the question, like, who do you think's gonna win it? And like almost everyone in the league voted against him. So he's like,
yeah, sticking it to us.
Yeah,
but there's always next year.
Yes, sir.
Hopefully we'll see you next year, Daniel.
Yep. So that'll do it. And also announcement. We're actually talking to a couple other podcasts about doing a potential 3-round mock draft with about anywhere between 4 and 10 people, other podcasters.
That sounds fun.
So
I love mock drafts.
We're going to be working on that. Each one of us will have 4 teams, potentially 8.
Wow.
So we'll see how that goes. I already know what you'll probably go for if you get the Falcons. Well, we'll probably let you have the Falcons, but
oh, thanks. There's so many great players to choose from. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. But anyway, that does it for us for tonight. Y'all have a wonderful evening.
Thanks, everybody.
Later.